Hello, and welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast.
Dude, that was so lifelike. I didn't even know there wasn't Jerry. I mean, whatever his name is.
Peter.
I didn't even know it wasn't that other guy.
Hello.
So 13 seconds into our 2 hours. You're just doing this to me, huh?
Yep.
You're here, Peter?
Hello and welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for co-op news, reviews, and playthroughs. I'm Peter, and today we're reviewing GenCon 2023. What's up, Mike?
I'm ready to review it, baby. It's a failure.
What? And we also have a special guest, Jerry. Welcome, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. And I did not think it was a failure.
I didn't either. I'm just trying to be edgy.
Oh, edgy.
Edginess is good.
So should I put for the title of the podcast, GenCon 2023, is it a failure?
Now with edge.
If you put it on YouTube, it would have made a great thumbnail.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. We get
A total
all the
failure
views.
and have Mike with like big eyes and stuff.
No, it has to be a total failure, question mark, exclamation
Yes.
point.
The
Nice.
answer to all those questions is always no.
No, Jerry, the answer to all those questions and more is somewhere throughout the course of the podcast. You have to listen to the whole thing to find out.
Well, yeah, and you know what? That is an interesting question that came up recently. So, hey, feel free to email us at onestopcoopshop@gmail.com with your answer. I've been doing like thumbnails now for my reviews on the YouTube channel that have a little header at the top. And most of them are just like a description of the game. Like, I don't know, the upcoming Masters of the Night review is like blood-sucking fun or something like that. But the one for Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, I said, my favorite dungeon crawler, ? And then in the video, I said, hey, this is my favorite dungeon crawler now. So is it clickbait if
Yes.
the answer to the question is yes?
The
Yes.
answer to the question is clearly yes.
Is it clickbait if I remove the question mark?
No. No.
If I say my favorite dungeon crawler statement, and then
It's
the
that's
video
just a
says
spoiler, isn't it? I mean, they don't have to
Well,
click
sure.
on it then.
I guess
That's the anti-clickbait there.
they want to know why.
I'm more concerned with you saying blood-sucking fun.
You don't have fun sucking? That's not a thing?
I do not.
Because there was a lot of blood sucking at GenCon. There wasn't.
Well, that was
There
the
was
worst
no
segue
blood.
ever.
There was no blood whatsoever that I'm aware of. Except we did do True Dungeon a couple times. So if you don't know what True Dungeon is, hang on for that part. Spoiler alert.
Things got bloody. No.
No.
No, I did die in one of them. So yeah,
Yes.
things did get bloody. Yeah.
All right. So before I forget, because just from how this is going already, I feel like I probably will. So we want to thank some of our Patreon supporters. And yes, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/onestop. You get early access to videos on the main channel there. You also get exclusive videos. There's like 80 of them now. So if you want to see like extra playthroughs and top 10 lists and random conversations between me and Peter, go and join. And just to thank a few of our patrons, this week I'm thanking Ben Smith, Eric Fuerst, #FarmLife. Yeah, #FarmLife, TJ Roberts, and Anonymous. Yeah, Anonymous, my favorite patron now. So thank you, Ben,
Anonymous
Eric.
It's Colin Dignan.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, I hope not. I told him to stop supporting our own Patreon. He is literally paying himself. Yes, so Patreon helps us to support the channel, buy review copies, buy equipment, go to conventions like GenCon. I think every single person who went to GenCon paid for a large portion of it out of Patreon money. So thank you all for that. It's how we were able to talk about this crazy thing.
Yes. And if you think this episode sucks, stop supporting us.
That's
Oh, no,
right.
wait.
Then we'll never go again, and none of this will happen.
I'll still go.
Yeah. No, Jerry will force me to go, so I'll still be going anyway. So, yeah, there goes that.
I like GenCon. Spoiler.
Yeah, Jerry likes Gen Con way more than I do. But actually, Mike, we haven't heard your opinion on Gen Con, so I can't wait till the end of the episode. See, that's what they call a teaser, to find out your final thoughts on Gen Con, because Jerry and I are not on opposite ends of the spectrum here, but there are definitely conventions I like better than Gen Con. So we'll probably wrap it all up with that when we're done. But let's start. Where do you think we should start?
Wednesday?
Oh, at the beginning. Come on,
Oh,
guys.
sorry.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning, which was Wednesday, by the way. So the guys showed up at my house at 7 a.m. and we took off on our 9+ hour drive to Indianapolis, starting that morning because we had an event with Asthma Day that evening. And
Yes.
anybody want to talk about their impressions? So it started at 5. It went from 5 to 8, and it was a like media / content creator like early look at all the games that they were going to show off at the show. So
Yeah,
any
I
games?
can give some impressions.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Peter generally drives straight. He sometimes, sometimes plays bad music repeatedly.
Sometimes.
But mostly I felt safe and cared for in a really meaningful way. It was very nice.
You were
I
on your
did
Steam
not.
Deck the most of the time, Mike.
I was on my Steam Deck or my phone most of the time. And reading rule books. I was reading board game
Oh,
rule
that's
books
true. You
because
were.
the channel never stops, right?
That is true. You definitely read a lot, especially on the way home. And hey, don't criticize my music selection. That's my family's favorite
Dude,
stuff.
I liked it. I liked it for the first 3-hour loop of it.
Yes, after 9 straight hours of driving, you do kind of run out of stuff. We did listen to some podcasts as well, but Mike doesn't like board game podcasts, so that kind of went by the wayside pretty quickly.
But I'm sure
So
our
yeah,
listeners do.
yes, well, hopefully because they are listening to this podcast.
Hopefully, at least one.
Of the 10,000 downloads we get a week, hopefully at least one of you likes podcasts. Although this is not our normal affair. If this is your first time listening, this is not how shows normally go. They are way less fun than this normally and way more content driven. So for the Asthma Day event, either of you have any impressions or anything you want to talk about at that event?
Well, I'll go
So,
first because I don't have any. I didn't really look at any of the co-op games they had there. I looked at the new Great Western Trail, which is the New Zealand one, which has a couple different changes, but unfortunately there wasn't anybody actually showing off the game there. They just had a copy of it opened with components. It looked
It
pretty
wasn't
good.
even really fully punched. It was just
No,
sitting on the
no.
table lonely. There were like a couple other games on that table, but it was sitting there like half punched out. The punch board literally laying on top of the board. I was just like, this is sad right
Yeah,
now.
it was a little sad for that, but apparently it sold out pretty quickly at the Asmodee booth come Thursday. So I'm a little sad that I didn't get a little bit more intro on that because I'm definitely interested because I think all three of us like Great Western Trail, or at least Peter and I do. Mike, do you
I
like it?
enjoy it. I enjoy it for more than the average Euro.
Yeah, so I don't have much to say about that one, but I did get a brief overview and demo of the new Star Wars. I guess you'd
Unlimited.
call it a CCG. It's called Star Wars Unlimited. It will have blind boosters. It's supposed to be out next year. It seems like the thing they were going on is that there is both space and ground combat in it, and they're two different sort of areas of the playmat, and you have a leader that sort of boosts both space and ground, but you can turn that leader into an actual unit on either side, or on the ones we saw were it was Luke versus Vader. So obviously they would change to ground units. But
I don't know. I was hoping Vader would be like in his like little fighter jet, right? Like that would be cool. They could have put him
if
in
Luke
space.
was in his X-wing, I mean, if he was Red 5,
Yeah.
but what they showed us was basically a starter, and you'd activate them and turn them into ground units. I didn't get too much into the game itself. They gave us a sort of an overview, but it didn't really get too much into detail. Nothing really jumped out to me other than it's Star Wars and it's blind boosters. So I doubt I'll be into this one, but the art was nice and it looked kind of cool. But that was all I had to say about that.
Yeah,
That's
it was
all
unique.
I have to say about
that. Yeah. The coolest thing I saw there though was they have the Ticket to Ride Legacy called Legends of the West set up. So it's a Ticket to Ride Legacy game. So I got to talk to Alan Moon, who is the designer of the original Ticket to Ride, and who co-designed the Legacy version with Rob Davio and Matt Leacock, Matt Leacock did Pandemic, and Rob Davio has done a whole bunch of things, but Matt and Rob did the original Pandemic Legacy Season 1, as well as I think Seasons 2 and 0, actually. But I talked to Alan Moon a bit about that, and he said it's Ticket to Ride is a legacy. Legends of the West is a legacy game, but the difference between that and the other legacy games like Pandemic Legacy Season Zero is that he felt that once you played Season Zero, you couldn't really play it again because uh, there were surprises and spoilers that happened that once you knew about them, it kind of ruined a replay of the whole thing. Whereas Ticket to Ride Legacy is supposed to be what happens in the game is driven by your choices, so you could go back and play the whole thing again and have entirely different things happen, which seems pretty interesting to me. They did have a copy there. It was the production copy looked very nice. The components were really excellent. There was a ton of boxes to open. The boards were jigsaw puzzle type, and looked very nice. So I'm interested in playing that one. I think it'll be at least interesting, if nothing else, and hopefully with the Ticket to Ride, style, it'll be accessible to introductory gamers or people who aren't into heavy strategy games.
Yeah, that was my standout as well. One of the coolest parts, as Jerry kind of alluded to, was this puzzle piece board where literally it was like a map of the US, but like you were clicking together different parts of the US. I would assume either based on player count or maybe you unlock more as the game goes on. I'm not really sure why they made it a puzzle piece. But
it seemed like the beginning started with the East Coast, and then
right.
you would expand out west, which hence the name Legends of the West, which it seems like a pretty good concept as far as a legacy game and Ticket to Ride is concerned.
Yeah, but I mean, I would imagine that you'd start with at least a couple of puzzle pieces in there because the first one was literally just like the Northeast. So I can't imagine that would be enough to play a game of Ticket to Ride. Can you imagine playing with like 3 routes?
Yeah, so you go between New York and Philadelphia. Woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious how that's all going to work out. But it was super neat for sure. That one I was very excited about. And I guess I should have pointed out earlier, that is one of the coolest parts about this Asmodee room. Most of the people that were teaching you about the games were the designers themselves. So, yeah, that was pretty nifty.
Yeah, it was really cool talking to Alan Moon. Because he's like a gaming luminary, made millions of dollars off Ticket to Ride. So that was nice.
Yeah, so the only other games that I wanted to talk about that you didn't there, because those were the main heavy hitters for me, were the Carcassonne co-op version was there, as well as Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is a miniatures-based game. They've come up with a new starter box for that one, and the neat part about the starter box is, or the neatest thing I heard there, was they're re-releasing all the missions. And again, this is not cooperative, but they're going to release a mission pack where they've basically redone all the missions. So you don't have to, you used to have to buy like different heroes just to get certain missions. Well, now you can get every mission they've released in like a mission pack, which was kind of cool because I like the game, but now with just buying a starter in that mission pack, you have access to a lot of different replay with the game, which I thought was kind of neat. Way for them to go. A lot of companies will hide that stuff, as they did as well in boosters and things like that. So you got to buy heroes you're not interested in just to be able to have access to the missions. Well, they've kind of reversed that and opened it up and made it more accessible, I feel like, to a larger audience, which made me happy, at least anyway. They do have some solo co-op missions. I played it. They're okay. I don't know that I would buy the game just for that, but as I play more of them, if I do find one that really stands out, maybe we'll have a podcast episode on that as well. And like, okay, it's worth buying in just for this mission. If they do a good enough job with it, we'll get into that at some point.
Yeah, and I'll just there were 2 co-op ones that I saw. I didn't get to play any of these, but they had, oh gosh, wait, what is the full name? It's Borderlands, Mr. Twerk's Arena of Badassery.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, so this is a arena game, although I was happy to see that it has objectives. So it doesn't seem like it's just going to be shoot each other, but trying to like actually get stuff. And it is only solo co-op. I kind of assumed it would be competitive, like with a solo co-op mode. But the fact that it's only solo co-op gives me more hope for it. You play as Vault Hunters. This is based on the Borderlands video game, by the way, if you don't know it. And you are facing down people from the video game. And they had like a huge deck of guns because a huge thing of Borderlands is picking up guns and getting new ones. Now I don't know how different gun to gun will feel and like how much that'll affect the gameplay. And the enemy AI looks interesting, but I didn't get like the full details on how it'll work. But that one's pretty cool. And then also another. Oh, sorry.
Just to kind of jump in on that one, I forgot about that one. I was interested in that too. So if you don't know Borderlands, but you know Diablo, it's similar to Diablo. It's very loot based. Like everything you kill drops a piece of loot. They're minorly better and worse in certain ways than others. So yeah, I will be interested in how they do that because it certainly could lead to a Diablo game or another, massive loot dropping game like that, which, I love those kind of video games. It'll be interesting to see how it translates to a board game.
Yeah, I definitely like the video game, and I'm glad to hear you say, Mike, that there's objectives involved because I completely ignored it because I heard it was an arena combat game, and I'm not a big fan of arena combat games. But if it's co-op and it's still objective based, that interests me.
Yeah, I didn't get all the details again, but it sounded more like you need to like go and do things, even like enemies might spawn again. Like, so you can't win by killing them all, but we will see. And then, yeah, the other co-op one I saw at the Asmodee event, this is coming from Simon, but Asmodee is handling their like retail distribution now. It's a pretty recent deal. Is the Metal Gear Solid board game, which we've talked about in the past. It used to be with IDW. It's now with Simon. It's not coming out until next year at the earliest. But yeah, I got to see a little bit of it. It was actually on the demo floor, so I wish I'd gotten to play it later in the con, but I didn't. But it's got stealth gameplay, and it's got like crazy boss fights. They had some samples of the Revolver Ocelot fight. If anyone knows the original Metal Gear Solid, there was a fight against this guy who shoots guns and like ricochets them off the walls, just like he could do with real guns, of course.
And he has the coolest name.
I mean, yeah, his name is Revolver. I mean, that's what he shoots with. It's good. His parents chose well. So, yeah, it looks pretty interesting. I have no idea how the stealth will work yet, but I at least know they are very committed to like getting the video game IP to be a reality in a cool way and like really bringing to life the stuff from the game. And I'm a fan of those games, so I have some confidence. And Emerson, who is the designer, also designed Spectre Opt, which I thought was a better than average hidden movement like stealth detection game. So I have some hope that he'll do a nice job with this one.
Very cool. And then, so after we left there, we did have some connections and stuff like that with some content creators we knew. But the next place we went was the Lucky Duck event. I don't even remember where that was, but it's for Cosmoctopus, which is a game that they had releasing at the con. And it was designed by our good friend Henry. What's Henry's last name?
Audubon.
That's right.
Our good friend Henry, no last name.
I mean, do you know all your best friends' last names? Let's be honest.
Well, yeah.
I think so.
All right. Well, forget you guys. I'm out of here. All right. So by our good friend Henry Audubon. And that game did very well at the convention. I think they brought in 650 copies and they sold out. They were selling out each day, but like kind of rationing it as the con went. But no, that went very well. And that event was fun. And that kind of met us up with Henry, which led to our next thing, which was Going Gaming. But Mike, you want to talk a little bit about Cosmoctopus? Because you did a solo playthrough for that one.
Yeah, I did a preview of it. And from what I understand, what I previewed is pretty much the same as the final game. It's a competitive game. You are moving around these tiles that'll give you different resources. And you're trying to build up enough resources to collect tentacles. You can also you get these constellation cards that kind of have like paths, and you fill in the paths by also getting resources, and those will earn you tentacles. You're trying to get the 8 tentacles you need to summon the great Cosmoctopus in the Inky realm, and I guess live with him in joy forever. I don't know. But yeah, it's a fun game, a fun Euro, and it's been a while since I played it, but I remember the solo mode being pretty solid. So yeah, I'm super happy for Henry as a friend. The game is fun, so I'm glad it did well. And yeah, that's about all I got for now. I did win a Cosmoctopus plushie by answering the question, which Star Trek series was the best. So,
Next Generation.
Yes. Well, that was my answer. Although, funnily enough, the person who was running the question and answer, Devin from Devin Talks Tabletop, is that his channel, I think? He said I was wrong and said it was Deep Space Nine, but the other people running the contest immediately gave me one anyway. They disagreed with his answer. So yeah, but
I would like to give a little shout out to Lucky Duck. I thought that event was pretty cool. So they had a space that's there's kind of a meeting area in sort of like a, I don't know what the brand name of it was, but it's kind of like a WeWork kind of place. But it was nice. There was snacks and non-alcoholic beverages. It was a good place. Everybody got together, met a lot of content creators, a lot of good conversations with people I'd never met, and I thought the event was pretty good overall.
I mean,
I'd like to see
it's a
more of those
great,
kind of things.
yeah, and I mean, not everybody's doing it, but obviously Asmodee did it for all their stuff, and then Lucky Duck did it as well for their one big release for the con. So no, I think this is something that's they've done a lot of stuff like this in the past where it's one-offs where they'll do small meetings, they'll meet with a couple of public or a couple of content creators at a time, and I think that is a smart way to do it as well. But this is nice because you do get to like talk to other people and maybe collaborate on stuff in the future that you don't always get to talk to. So it's a lot of the same people at the Lucky Duck one that were at the Asmodee one as well, it felt like.
I just thought it was nice to gather a bunch of content creators together, but without plying them with a tremendous amount of food or alcohol or something like that. It was sodas and drink and some snacks and everybody getting together and talking and taking a look at Cosmoctopus. So
Yep,
I
and they
enjoyed that.
definitely had some games running there as well. So
Definitely.
I think, yeah, that was kind of cool. All right. So then we talked to Colin, Barrett, Terrence, Steve, who were all there, and they were all playing games at the Hyatt. So we went over to the Hyatt, or Hyatt Regency, right?
It was like the
something.
Hyatt Place or something.
Or
Yeah,
Hyatt
that's right. It was
Place.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went over to the Hyatt Place, and they had basically game rooms, but like they were just little meeting rooms, kind of enough for like 3 tables in each. So they were in one of those, and thankfully one of the tables next to them opened up. So we ended up playing with Henry and Chris. We ended up playing this a game of Flame and Fang. Introduced them to it. So Flame and Fang only handle that's our game that is coming up. We were showing it off for the first time at GenCon. And so it handles 1 to 4 players very well, Flame and Fang, but it doesn't handle 5, and there were 5 of us. So I ended up sitting out and just watching and observing. So that was a very good session, though, because we got some really good, honest feedback that usually happens when you play with other designers and publishers. We got some very good feedback on the game that actually led us to changing how we were showing it throughout the course of the weekend. So, Mike, you were in that game, and Jerry, you were in that game. Any additional things you want to throw in?
Well, I think this should be a whole design discussion later. We have been big proponents for years of either simultaneous play in cooperative games when possible, and or kind of free form turn structure. Like I go for a little bit, then you go for a little bit, then I go for a little bit, then somebody else goes for a little bit. And yeah, I've started to realize I don't like that in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases anymore. And that's basically what happened here. Like with Henry and Chris's play, I was like, man, a 4-player, this is not my favorite way to do this. So we switched to kind of a more traditional turn structure, like taking turns in order around the table. And I think the game's way better for it. So yeah, I won't go too much into detail, but I think that could be a whole podcast by itself, kind of like evolving thoughts on more freeform turn structure and simultaneous playing games.
Well, my
Yeah,
thought on that is I think it becomes a problem when people start discussing what order to take turns versus what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think we were getting pretty towing that line, I think, discussing what order we should go in versus what we were actually trying to do. And
yes.
I think overall it's improved. But Peter, I think you did the game a little bit of disservice by not introducing it, explaining what it's about before we
Oh,
get into the discussion on it.
so it is a deck builder with a board. So think Clank a little bit, but very different than that, obviously, as far as gameplay goes. But deck builder with a board. But two of the coolest things I think that stand out to me are, number one is you get to be a dragon. So I don't know. I like being
That's
a
pretty
dragon.
cool.
It's pretty cool. You are a Thunder of Dragons was almost the name of the game, which is a group of dragons, but you're basically a clutch of eggs that is hatched together. So you are working together basically to survive. And then the story evolves from there. And that is, to me, the second cool thing that comes out of this is the story deck that's involved. Our graphic designer Kenneth did an awesome job, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later, but of laying it out so it looks like a book. So like chapter 1 is called The Hatchlings, and you open this book up and then you just have like the introductory story on 2 cards. But it's not really a book. It's literally just a deck of cards, but you flip one over and it looks like you've opened the pages of a book up. So you flip one over and kind of put it in a discard pile to the left of the first one, and now it looks like a book page, and then you read the introductory story. Then it says flip this page, you flip it over again, and it has the setup for the mission and any special instructions you'd have during the setup. And it says flip this page over, then it gives you kind of the objective that you're going for. So every chapter is going to have completely different objectives. It's going to have a completely different boss. You're going to be doing a lot of similar things, right? Because you're mostly flying around, killing stuff, gathering resources up, but you're going to have to do it in unique ways for each different mission. Is very different from the mission before. So yeah, no, that is Flame and Fang. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, I think you got it. I was just super. Yeah, I mean, like we're not gonna spend too much time talking about our own game. We could do another podcast about that. But a ton of people played it, and pretty much, I think everyone enjoyed it. I mean,
Well,
maybe they're just being nice to us.
I'm going to say a few words about it because so I'm part of Mike and Peter's regular gaming group, but I generally do not enjoy playtesting unfinished games at all.
Yeah,
But
won't
so
do
this
it.
is the
Is
first.
really
Yeah,
the real
won't do
words.
it. Basically, yeah. So this is the first time I played Flame and Fang in probably a year. It had changed significantly since I had last played it, and wow, was it good! We had a lot of fun. There was even with first time players, there was a lot of back and forth and discussion and helping each other without the alpha player problem. Like nobody was directing anybody else to do something. We were all sort of determining our own turns, but working together to accomplish our objectives. It was really well done co-op game. I had a lot of fun playing it.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. We had heard that from you before, so definitely appreciate that.
Well, I didn't want to inflate your ego too much.
I mean, yeah, no, it's pretty bad already. So I'm glad you didn't do that. But anything else you have for Wednesday night before we get into Thursday?
Now,
That was it for me.
Yeah, if we want to keep this thing moving, let's go.
All right, so Thursday morning, Mike and I went to a different hotel. I forget where it was, but we were basically looking for a gaming space in the morning before the hall opened at 10, and we tried out the changes we were talking about for Flame and Fang, and they worked really well, and we were super happy with them. And so because we were both doing demos of the game throughout the course of the day, and we just wanted to do some final play testing that next morning to make sure, I mean, we basically just changed the turn structure and changed a little bit about how the first mission worked to simplify it a little bit. And we're really happy with the changes. So, you always wonder, like, what do you do at these cons? Well, sometimes you end up playtesting your own stuff, even though you're there to, just to make sure the demo goes off really well. And so I was really happy with how things went that morning. Really super happy with, again, Chris and Henry. Thank you so much for all the, advice input you had on the game. The core was there. 99% of the game didn't change. It was just this one tweak to how the turn structure worked, and it really made the game, like Mike said, come alive. So anything else you guys did Thursday? Jerry, what were you doing while we were doing that?
I didn't do a whole lot Thursday morning. I did go into the dealer hall. It was a little bit different for me this Gen Con because I did not spend a lot of time in the dealer hall at all. I sort of went in Thursday. I did not participate in the I don't know what they call it, the running of the nerds, I think now. When everybody queues up and then rushes in when it opens. I did that once, and actually I did it again on Saturday, but we'll get to that. I wasn't feeling like participating in that this time, but when I did go in, I made a beeline for the Ares booth because the War of the Ring card game expansion, I can't remember what it's called, Against the Shadow, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. It's the co-op / solo expansion for War of the Ring War of the Ring the card game. So I managed to pick up a copy of that, and apparently it's a good thing I did because it sold out pretty quickly, which seems to be actually a theme of this Gen Con, that things were selling out left and right. I mean, the highly popular things always sell out at Gen Con, but there seemed to be an awful lot of things selling out at the dealer hall at this Gen Con. So I did manage to pick up a copy of the War of the Ring, the card game expansion, and we'll talk about that later when Mike and I got a chance to sort of try it out.
Well, and another thing I'll jump into real quick is Gen Con did have its largest attendance ever this year. It was over 70,000 uniques.
I think it was over 80, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I read the article I read said over 70, but over 80, I would believe that. There were a lot of people
It
there.
was crowded.
So that leads to, what Jerry was saying, a lot of games selling out, things like that. I think people were excited to be, without masks, although there were plenty of people with masks. But, just more free of COVID, the last few years were definitely hampered by that. And you see it everywhere in the world right now, but certainly Gen Con was an example of that. So from what I heard, actually, they are expanding the Indie Convention Center and they're adding another hotel with like 800 rooms or something like that. So Indie is definitely trying hard to keep Gen Con. So,
well, they just signed a deal to keep it through 2030, which I'm glad to see because I think Indianapolis is a pretty good location for it.
Yeah. So, Mike, did you want to talk about your experience? Because I know you and I, after doing our playtesting, hit the showroom floor as well for the first time.
Yeah. So
Well,
for better, for better or worse, this is my first Gen Con, by the way. I scheduled a lot of meetings with publishers. And some of them were just like, hey, here's our games. And they just like show me the boxes. But a few of them actually like had playtests and things, which are the most interesting ones. So like, I'll just say some names real quick and then get to the main ones. I met with Alley Cat Games, saw a couple things like Starfighters and Dice Theme Park, I think it's called. I met with WizKids and saw Blob Party, which is a cooperative party game that looks pretty fun. They called it Reverse Just One, which already has my attention. And then the first one that was like kind of more meaty was with Scorpion Masqué, who they played, like I played with them, and then I got review copies of both of these. What was it called? Sky Team, which I know got a lot of buzz at the con and well worth it. I've played it like 10 to 15 times with my family since I got home, and I already recorded a review of it, and I'm just adoring it.
Is that the one where you're landing planes?
Yeah, so it's a 2-player only co-op game with a saloon of communication. Basically, you each have 4 dice, and every round you're placing your dice on different spots. But how your dice interact with each other for like the plane's heading and speed and all this other stuff is really interesting. And then there's a billion T modules you can add on, like fuel and training and intern and having to like dodge cliffs and more planes being in your way and all this stuff. So yeah, can't say enough good.
So do they just make it harder, or are they more like the Onirum series where they give you new tools?
So
and
I shouldn't really say modules. I mean, they are modular, but there's like 20, I want to say, scenarios to play.
Oh, okay.
And like, 6 of them are green, easy. Like 5 of them are yellow, 5 of them are red, 4 of them are black, like something like that. So they will include those in different ways, and also you'll have different airports with like their own configurations of everything. So far it's added a lot of variety to the game. Although I don't really care. Like I've played the base tutorial airport like 5 times now and loved it every time. So yeah, that's definitely one of the top games of the con for me, and a favorite of the year so far, just from playing it now that I've been home. So that's Sky Team, and I think it's ready for retail, so I'm guessing you'll be able to buy it somewhere soon. I also played Turbo Kids, which is in the Zombie Kids like kind of IP, but it's one player has a face mask on, so they can't see, like an eye mask or whatever you want to call it. Blindfold. There you go. Blindfold.
You mean like in real life?
Yeah, like they are wearing a blindfold. And the other player is directing them as they draw with a dry erase marker on a board that has like a racetrack and walls that you can't crash into. And they're trying to like direct you so you don't go into the walls. And then they're also, you hold up your thumb and they like move your thumb like it's a joystick to kind of indicate which direction you go.
Oh gosh,
it's totally insane, but it was also super fun.
There's lots of touching involved.
Well, yeah,
I don't do touching.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I think that one will be more hit or miss for people. And then I got to see actually pretty far along build of the Dead Cells board game that we did a preview of, and I think we play. I know Peter, you played that with Jerry. Did you play the Dead Cells game with us?
I did not.
Okay, yeah. So I definitely like that one. It's a that's another video game IP that I'm a fan of. So yeah, so it looks really nice. The miniatures look great. The components are looking awesome. They're doing the Trudvang thing, Jerry, where they have like a board with plastic slots that you like kind of put the cards in
Okay,
and they stay there.
that's a good part of Trudvang.
Well, in the combat,
You said Trudvang. I'm like, well, the fact
yeah,
that you
yeah,
can't
no,
lose is,
like a good thing from Trudvang. But yeah, so that was
okay,
fun.
all right.
And then the only other one that I played something for was Dead Alive Games. I played a early version of an upcoming game from them called Cyber Pet Quest. Very small box. I think it's gonna be a very low price point, but it's like a little co-op adventure game where you're cybernetically enhanced pets trying to find your owner in this kind of like interesting like left to right but story driven like thing, but you're also like fighting people. It was very early. There were some things I didn't like about it that I told them about, and they seemed very receptive. So I have some confidence that the things that were not fun will become more fun. But yeah, those were the things I actually got to play during the day Thursday, outside of like just meeting with people.
Wow,
And
you
looking
went through. You just went through your whole day. I meant the morning. Like, what did you do in the morning? Which was none of that. I know because I spent the morning with you. We went to Kess. We talked to AJ. We went to Ghost Galaxy. Like none of the. And we played that other game. Wasn't that same day that like where we have to make people not match stuff?
Oh, I forgot about that. Agree to disagree.
Yeah. So yeah, agree to disagree was super fun. It's a competitive party game, but they do have a 2-player co-op mode. I guess you could play it with more players, but you're basically
no. It has to be more than 2 players. It's 3+ players.
Oh, because one person's picking the category.
Yeah, one person's picking the category and then specifically picking the 2 other people they think won't agree on it.
Yeah. So, for example, Mike said The Hobbit, the third movie of The Hobbit, like was a good movie. Well, he said like a masterpiece or something, which like clearly I like that movie, but I do not think it is a masterpiece. I almost did it, but I knew what Mike was trying to get me to do. I don't know if that's cheating or not.
Yeah.
So,
so the guy clarified the rules. Yeah. So what you do, and I did this a little bit wrong, is they have like 6 categories up. So it might be like, music artists or songs or vacation spots, etc. And you just name a thing. You're not supposed to say like a statement. You're not supposed to say is a masterpiece. So I should have just said the third Hobbit movie, and then what your goal is, you're supposed to pick 2 people.
Peter, is it good for you?
Wait, what just happened?
I don't know. Jerry?
All right, keep going.
And what you're supposed to do is pick 2 other players who you think will disagree. So one will say they like it and one will say they don't. And then it has like kind of this fun toy aspect where they each pick one side of this little thing secretly and they push them together. And if they have opposing views, then they click in and you get the point. And if they don't have opposing views, then they don't click in. I have a picture of it in my little GenCon video if anybody wants to like go see, or just go to the Board Game Geek page and look up Agree to Disagree. So yeah, I thought it seemed pretty fun. We only got to play like one little round of it, but for a quick little fun party game / conversation starter, seemed pretty solid.
So Peter, did Mike drop out for you?
No, I hear him. Do you hear him?
For me, no, he did in the middle of discussing that, but he's back now.
Yeah, well, the good news is if you just look at his line, it's all being recorded.
I have my OneNote up, so I don't.
Oh, got it.
So you might have to edit me out because I'm asking. I can't hear Mike.
Yeah. Anyway. No, we'll edit this down. Although those of you watching this on the streaming channel get all of this. Which
you have this up on the streaming channel?
Not yet, but I'm going to put it up tonight.
Gotcha.
Just so people can listen to it there, unedited. See, you asked for unedited.
We're doing it live.
Oh, you're getting unedited.
So I had one other thing in the morning, and that was talking about the Kess Games booth. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that at all, but I stopped by the Kess Games booth before Peter and Mike, and Kess Games was showing. Kess Games publishes some games based on IP. I think the 2 biggest ones are Mega Man Adventures, which was designed by Peter and Mike, and Contra, I believe, as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, those are
Yep.
the two big ones they had there. And then they also had, I actually bought this. They had a game based on the really popular manga and anime series, Spy X Family, or Spy Family, it's called.
Yeah, so I got to watch them demo Mega Man Adventures for some folks, and uh, no offense to the person demoing, it was Thursday morning, so it was their first go at it, and I, having done it before, I know how difficult it is to uh, demo games at a convention. Uh, I kind of stepped in and gave a little bit more detail on that, how the interaction between the players is going, and they ended up picking up a copy. So I just want to have it recorded for posterity that Mike and Peter owe me at least a quarter uh,
That's how much we make
for
from each copy of that, I'm sure.
for selling Mega Man Adventures. But it was apparently very well received, so worth mentioning.
Yeah, it either sold out or I know they were down to a few copies left the last time we went by, but that was like Friday, I feel like, or
Yeah, that
no,
was Saturday, but yeah, I mean, I think they had 7 copies left, and it was like middle of the day Saturday. So if they didn't sell out, I'd be surprised, which is certainly nice.
Yeah, so everybody get your
yeah.
copy of Mega Man Adventures.
Well, yeah, so that's what I was going to say. This is my shilling day apparently because all I did was like look at and play and talk about our games. So we went by the cast booth and like Jerry said, we got to look at them selling Mega Man Adventures. But the big news that came out of that is Mega Man Adventures is for sale. So we actually have a game, Mike and I have a game that you can pick up. It's not only on Amazon, but I think they said they're going to try to get into, or it is going into 150 Barnes and Noble locations as well. So I remember when it hit barnesandnoble.com, it was a bestseller and then sold out in one day. Like literally the next day they didn't have it available on the website anymore. So the good news is Kess definitely has interest in keeping that game alive. And so maybe more news to come on that in the future. But good news, Mega Man Adventures is alive and well. I know when we originally did it with Blacklist, there was lots of problems. Kess is taking care of all those problems. They are fulfilling all of the people who pre-ordered it. They're getting it to them. So thank you, Kess, for saving a game of ours that we did not think was going to go anywhere.
I would like to say a couple things though. If you're just to give you a little background on the game, Mega Man Adventures has two real things going for it, in my opinion, and that is one is it really does feel like Mega Man, where you're going through the levels, you're fighting the bosses, you're getting their powers, but it also has a tremendous amount of cooperation between the players that isn't driven by an alpha player. So it's a lot of fun as a co-op game, and you really do feel like you're playing Mega Man.
Man, we got to pay Jerry.
Yeah, I know. He's hyping our games better than we do. I mean, I feel awkward.
When I play your games and I like them, I express that. When I play your games
that
and
is
I
true,
don't,
Peter.
I
He's
shut
not,
up.
Yeah, he's not mentioning anything about some other games we've designed.
Well, speaking of another game we designed,
you notice that?
I do want to talk about another game we designed, Salvation Road. We did go see AJ, who is Van Ryder Games, and he published our first game, Salvation Road. And the good news for that, and no announcement, nothing soon, but he basically, I guess, good news is that he said he's done with that game and he's not going to be publishing it anymore. So he kind of gave us the rights back, which means, as we talked about earlier with Flame and Fang, we are starting our own publishing company. So that might be something we rework and come out with something new. I wouldn't expect that anytime in the next couple of years because we do have a couple other projects on the go right now that we want to do. But that is a game I think both Mike and I love to death and have a very high interest in getting that one back out again in a form we think will be even more exciting for players. So like a 2.0 version of Salvation Road.
I really enjoy that one too. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of ours for sure. The difficulty wasn't right. Like it was very hard, but the problem is players play it for the first time and they get spanked. We were new designers when we did that. That was our first design, so we didn't. And co-ops were like notoriously wanted it to be super hard, right? So we made it a super hard co-op. Well, that we've changed our philosophy on that over time. So
it's really hard until you understand what it's trying to accomplish, and then it becomes not quite as hard. I mean, you still lose even if you play pretty well sometimes.
Yeah,
but I think once you understand the general flow of the game, it's pretty well balanced.
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I can win on normal difficulty 75% of the time. That's why
Yeah.
we didn't think it was too hard. The problem is, if it is your first ever time playing, you are not winning 75% of
No,
the
you're
time.
not. No.
Man, y'all are making me think of War of the Ring Against the Shadow, the expansion Jerry bought. I just
We'll get to
recorded.
that later,
I
Mike.
just recorded my review for that, and yeah.
Well, we could talk about that in a minute. I do want to talk about Ghost Galaxy. So that is the one non-us thing that I did. Well, that and True Dungeon, but we'll get to that next. Ghost Galaxy is the new publisher for Keyforge, and they had a new Keyforge adventure was there. So I did take a look at it. I almost picked it up, but then I looked
Peter,
at the
what's
back.
a Keyforge adventure?
Oh, so Keyforge Adventure is the solo co-op version of Keyforge. So Keyforge is not a collectible card game, but it is a unique deck game where you buy a deck for $10. It might be 12 now. And it is a unique deck. There will never be any other deck exactly like it in the world. And so it's already put together for you. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It actually inspired Flame and Fang, the card play of it. It is definitely, if you've ever played Keyforge, you will see it in Flame and Fang, the card play there. I just love the system. I love how it works. And so they made a co-op. They've made 3 now co-op adventures. And the first one was great solo. It was like Rise of the Keyraken or something like that. And you're fighting against this thing and it worked out really well. The problem was when you played it multiplayer, the first person goes, and similar to Magic and other like card games, when you summon creatures for the first time, they come in with like summoning sickness. They come in tapped, whatever you want to call it. So in the first Keyforge adventure, the first player would go and a bunch of stuff would happen. The player would go, then the AI would go, and it would summon a bunch of stuff. And then the second player would go, and they would try to summon some creatures or whatever. But there were already now creatures on the board that attacked the second player's creatures, so they would all be dead. And worse yet, if there was a third player in the game, because it did play up to 3, they would really have a line of crap already set up to destroy them by the time their turn came around. So it didn't really work as a multiplayer game, but really worked well as a solo game. They fixed that in the second one, the Abyssal Conspiracy. And the way they did that is every player had their own enemy area in front of them. So unless you were sharing a location, those enemies wouldn't attack other people. So that worked much better. The problem is, I did not play the third one, but the third one, they went back to the original method. And the designer was there, and I don't want to put too much bad buzz out there, but like he's like, yeah, I didn't really understand how the second one works, so I just went back to the first one. I'm like, all right, now maybe there aren't as many creatures, maybe there are other things that fix it and don't make it as bad as it was in the first one, but like that just totally turned me off, and I did not pick that up.
Well,
But
I thought the first one was okay, but it seemed very much geared to particular types of decks. And if
yes,
you're dealing with Keyforge, where you sort of get a random deck when you buy it, it's very possible that the deck you're playing just doesn't work with it. So you might have to have multiple decks and only use the deck that works with that co-op scenario. Which I mean, I guess is okay if you're into Keyforge and you have a bunch of decks. But if you're just buying it because you want solo co-op and you buy a Keyforge deck, you may very well get a deck that just does not work with that scenario and just won't be fun.
and to be fair, the first scenario was very fighting intense.
Yes.
So you needed a lot of fighting decks, and that's why it was a problem to have one row. If this one was more thwarting or whatever, not thwarting, I'm now thinking of Marvel Champions.
Questing.
Yeah, like getting Amber, whatever they call that. I don't even remember. But if it's more focused on that, then it might not be as much of an issue as it was in the first scenario. And again, I didn't play it, but just when they said they used the first system again, I was like, yeah, that was, I mean, it's great solo. It works very well solo, but it did not work multiplayer as well for the reasons we already pointed out.
So that said, I'm gonna jump in here, Mike or Peter, Mike. It was nice because for the Keyraken scenario, which was the first one, they did release it as print and play. So
Yes.
it was released for free. It's not like you had to buy anything. If you want, you can buy it now from Ghost Galaxy if you want the official printed cards. But it was available print and play. and it was sort of trying something different with a format that was essentially competitive to begin with. So I applaud them for trying to do something solo and co-op with it, and especially for releasing it for free for people to play. Because I know Peter and I played it uh, at least 3 or 4 times
Oh yeah, I still have it. I'll
cooperatively.
still
Yeah,
pull it
yeah.
out
I mean, it was
for solo. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it was certainly it was nice to see them support the game in that fashion.
Yeah. So, Mike, do you have anything else for Thursday, or did you literally go through your whole day?
I got like Thursday night, but if y'all have anything else for the day, go ahead.
The only other thing we did is True Dungeon. Jerry, I talked a lot. Do you want to talk about our True Dungeon experience?
Sure. So Peter and I had talked about trying True Dungeon for a couple Gen Cons now. So True, for those that don't know, True Dungeon is sort of a live escape room ish uh, activity where you go in with a group of up to 10 people and you go physically from room to room and either have to solve puzzles or fight an enemy or something like that as you're progressing through a story. So the one we did on Thursday, we actually were able to sign up for 2 of them, and they sold out incredibly quickly. So you had to sort of pull the trigger when you had a chance. The first one we did on Thursday was Barbeard's Treasure, which was a sort of styled as a introductory scenario. So it only had 4 rooms versus the regular True Dungeon, which is 7 rooms. And we figured we'd try out this one on Thursday, and then if we liked it, we'd do the one on Saturday. And if we didn't, we'd return the tickets for Saturday and get our money back. So we did True Dungeon on Thursday, and the thing that made this intro is you have these things where you get equipment in the form of like poker chips, basically, and the equipment might be weapons or armor, and you equip your character before you go in. Well, the thing that was special about this one is that you were given a set of 10 tokens to go into the dungeon, and you couldn't bring any ones that you already had. So it was really geared for people who were new to True Dungeon. So we each got our set of 10. We sat in with a bunch of people we didn't know, and we're trading around tokens to try to optimize our equipment. And then we went into the True Dungeon. So without spoiling too much, like I said before, there were 4 rooms. 2 of the rooms were puzzle rooms where we had to get together and collectively solve a puzzle, and before we moved on. And 2 of the rooms were fights where you combat an enemy using a combination of the spellcasters sort of do their own thing that usually involves memorization, and the others essentially play a shuffleboard game where they're trying to push their tokens to a particular area of this board to hit and then cause damage to the enemy. So we played that. It was our first experience with it, and I don't know about you, Goose, but I had an awful lot of fun playing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. One of the
And
things.
it was
Oh, go ahead.
I would highly recommend doing the shorter dungeon if it is your first time
Yes.
doing it. First of all, it was about half the price of
Yes.
the full dungeon. It was also half the number of rooms, so your time commitment was less too. Instead of 7 full rooms, it was only 4 rooms. You still get a good enough flair, and I thought they really hit it off with a bang with the first room you went into. I'm not going to spoil what it was, but it was one of the puzzle rooms, and it was a really neat physical puzzle where you got to do like some really cool teamwork stuff with other people around the table. And I thought it was just a knock it out of the park first experience. And then at another point in the dungeon with your first fight, they had a really cool animatronic thing. Again, no spoilers, but I thought that was like just a really cool first experience. So even if you're trying to introduce somebody to it, I would highly recommend taking them to this like smaller dungeon first, because they're not skimping on the quality of stuff there. Now having gone through the second one as well, it's just a shorter experience, and you don't have to have a bunch of stuff. In fact, I was the monk and I didn't use any of my equipment at all, and you didn't really need it as a monk. So that's another thing. If you want to just play a monk, you better be really good at shuffleboard, because they they expect you to hit a 20, which is like this small dot on the other end of the board, and you have to be I thought it was really cool. Like most of the time you'd put a poker chip in your weapon to like mark how much damage you did and any cool special effects or whatever else. But for the monk, they just use their fists. So that the pucks themselves just had damage numbers on them. And so, but the thing with the monk is you had to shoot one puck and then you had to throw a second one before the first one stopped really quickly. So it was definitely a lot of dexterity involved in being a monk. But what I realized after a while is just make sure that first one counts and the second one only if you really think you messed up the first one. Like, was I really overly concerned with it? I just wanted to get it on the board in the general area, and most of the time it would be a hit.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to bring up here is that I know that it is so the puzzle rooms especially. So you have groups that are generally 10 people but could range anywhere, from 6 to 10 based on how many people will actually show up. And it is very challenging to make an escape room puzzle for a range of people that everybody feels they're participating in and usefully participating in. And I think they did a really great job of that, especially the first room. uh,
Yes.
Everybody was involved in the puzzle. Everybody had something to do. While there was discussion about who should do what and things like that, it wasn't like people dictating other people what to do. It was really well done. It is very clear that they had worked hard on the puzzle and they had play tested the puzzle, and I was very pleased with how that turned out.
Although I will say, I would probably not be one of the first groups to go through because they did say that they like changed the puzzle throughout the day. Like if it was too hard, too easy, they kind of tweaked it. I feel like that first day. So this was the first day we did go through, but we didn't go through until, the afternoon. And I do like the fact that they are not so set in their ways that they're just leaving the puzzle as if it is if it's too difficult. I feel like later on they were giving more clues and stuff for puzzles that were harder, when we went on later in the con. So I would say I probably wouldn't want to be one of the first groups to go through that's like the quote unquote playtest or whatever. I mean, it'd still be fun, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like they really do a good job of tweaking it and realizing where the hiccup points are throughout the course of it and really trying to help smooth that out.
Yeah, I definitely got the impression that they care about the experience of the people who are involved, and the
Yep.
proctors that were in each room were really set on trying to make sure that people had an enjoyable time without making it simple to the point of you know making the puzzles trivial.
Yeah. Well, just as an example, the first puzzle they made harder because people were
Yes.
getting through it
Yes.
too easily. Um, yeah, so it's not always that they're just making it easier also. All right. Well, the only thing I'm going to just quickly talk about Thursday night because I didn't really do a whole lot. I really just ran a bunch of games of Flame and Fang that night with a bunch of different groups. I actually had lines waiting. I wish I would have brought my second copy with me. We had 3 total physical copies of Flame and Fang with us. Unfortunately, I only had one with me. Mike had one that he was playing, and we left the other one in the car. So if I had 2 copies, they would have been running all night. We definitely had people waiting over an hour to play in the games. And like Mike said earlier, all the response was awesome. So super happy about that. Yeah, so that was my Thursday night. Mike, why don't you go? You haven't talked in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go quickly because my Thursday night, I was hanging out with some really cool content creators. Maggie and Amy from Thinker Themer, who I had met at the Level Up event thing I went to a few weeks before. And Candice from Board Game Geek, who I'd met briefly in the past, but this was the first convention that I really got to hang out with her a lot. And then also a friend going back quite a bit on Facebook, but we had not met in person before, was Mark Dainty from Not Board Gaming, his YouTube channel. He was in from the UK. And that was pretty awesome. I mean, they were all great people. They did play Flame and Fang. The 4 of them, while I kind of like oversaw the game, playing with the updated turn structure. It went great. I'm going to stop talking about Flame and Fang. We'll talk about that more when it's actually coming up. But besides that, we played That's Not a Hat, which I had learned at Level Up, and that's a fun little party game. And we played a bunch of competitive or team-based trick-taking games because Candice loves trick-takers. And it was a blast. I guess the one, we played so many of them, or the 2 that would stand out the most were Robo Trick, where it's a 3-player only game, but there's also like a robot and you can see their cards and you know how they're going to play them. So you have like this interesting like open information. And then, oh man, there was like a French one that used a French tarot deck, and now I can't remember the name, but that one was really good too. If it comes to me, I'll say it. But yeah, so a lot of competitive games besides Flame and Fang. I think everything we played was competitive, but it was all pretty fun. So yeah, that was my Thursday night hanging out with other content creators.
All right, Jerry, did you do anything different Thursday night?
Well, before I get into my Thursday night, I wanted to bring up one of the pros of Gen Con is being able to meet all these people and hang out with these people that you wouldn't ordinarily see. So I know we met several people from the UK. I mean, I wasn't with Mike on Thursday night, but I know Thinker Themer, aren't they based out of Australia?
Yeah, they're out of Australia. That's right.
Yeah, and I don't know where Candace is, but uh, it's a whole bunch of people that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to meet, all coming together at Gen Con. So that's pretty cool. But on my Thursday night, if anybody's listened to my previous uh, participation in con recaps, I like to try to get in RPGs at at cons because I don't normally get to do them. So I got to play Call of Cthulhu, which is something I try to do at each con that I go to. And it was sort of an intro scenario, but it was the only one I could get into because they all sold out very quickly. But it was called the Necropolis. It was you're a bunch of sort of Indiana Jones archaeologist style folks going to an ancient Egyptian tomb and going in and finding things that you did not expect. But it's always nice. I've had really nothing but good experiences going to these RPGs at cons. I know at first I was a little worried about role playing with other people that you don't know, and what if you get somebody who has is coming at it from a completely different angle and it just doesn't work out. But I've had universally good experiences playing RPGs at cons. So if you have the opportunity to do so, I highly suggest you try it out if you're interested. I played with an awesome group at Gen Con of Call of Cthulhu, a mix of players who have played before and brand new players, and everybody was really getting into it, and it was an awful lot of fun overall. So just generally, shout out to doing RPGs if you have any interest in it at conventions.
Cool. All right, well, let's go into Friday. Mike, again, I feel like it's been a while since you talked, so why don't you get into what you did Friday morning?
Yeah, so okay, just morning. What did I do Friday morning? I thought I was meeting somebody, and then I was actually on the wrong day. So a lot of Friday morning, I just wandered around.
David Thompson, you were supposed to meet.
Yeah, this is totally my fault. David Thompson did nothing
Thanks
wrong.
for making us get up early, Mike.
Yeah, I know. I apologize. Definitely my fault. Yeah, David Thompson, a great designer, friend. He's a friend of mine, and I've only gotten to meet him in person one other time. So we were going to meet up. We did meet up on Saturday. That's neither here nor there. But Jerry, you actually joined me a bit for this. In the morning, we went to two events in the it was in the stadium adjacent to like the main convention center. They had, I don't think they had used them in the past, but this year they had some like suites kind of like up overlooking the stadium. And I had two events in a row in those. The first one was by Rock Manor Games. They didn't have anything to play there, but they had a bunch of stuff out. The thing that caught my eye the most is Lawyer Up, which was a competitive like 1v1 only game originally, but now they're coming out with season 2 of the game, and it's going to have a solo mode, and it looks pretty robust and interesting because basically this is it's like a lawyer game where you're going back and forth and trying to like influence witnesses and things. I think it's like a matching thing, like you're trying to get things that match the witness, and the witness like you win the cross examination or whatever with the witness, and things will happen because of it. But besides,
do you get to object? That's really the important.
I guess so. I don't know.
I object, Mike.
I object to you, sir. But yeah, the besides the solo mode, season 2 looks cool because the cases are very unique. So the first one they showed was a divorce case, and you're trying to fight for the assets, and like each of you cares more about some assets and like gets different victory points from them. So like the well, actually, it's not. I was gonna say wife and husband, but they had the characters flippable, so you could have kind of any male or female pairing that you would like. But like one of them really likes dogs, so like you could be really spiteful and just try to take the dog from them, you don't give a crap, or like the kids, like you fight for custody of the kids. It was interesting. But then there's another case that's
playing that with my wife though. Like I got to be honest, like I don't want to know what she would do in a divorce. Like, maybe I do. Maybe that's just her way of like totally threatening me. Like, oh yeah, I'm taking the dogs and the kids. Like, no, not the kids.
But then the second case they showed was a film noir case where the one side is split between trying to like investigate and trying to actually like solve the finding clues, but also trying to like win in the courtroom.
So you're like Perry Mason or my cousin Vinny?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more Phoenix Wright from the Phoenix Wright video game series, but yes, either way. Yeah, so it looks cool. Again, I didn't get to play it, and they showed a few other games. And then the other thing I did in the morning, and Jerry was there for a lot of this with me, was Off Duty Ninja. If you haven't heard of them, there's a good reason you wouldn't have heard of them. They represent publishers, sometimes in their retail stuff, sometimes in their Kickstarter stuff. So they will like handle the media, or they'll be involved in like the crowdfunding campaign, answering comments and that kind of stuff. So they had like a whole bunch, again, no like real playing of games. They just had a ton of game boxes out basically. And the cool thing was you could look through them and like play around with the components and like read the rulebook and stuff. So the two that I gravitated towards were the White Castle, which is a competitive dice placement game, but had a solo mode. And the interesting thing with that one is you have it's a kind of Japanese themed, and like the components look very beautiful. And you have the dice on either on bridges, so you'll have like, I don't know, 4 or 5 dice on a bridge, and you can only use the dice that are on either side. So like both players are taking from the same pool, but by taking a die from a bridge, you obviously unlock the next die in on that bridge. And then there's also a mechanic where when you place on spaces, you have to either gain or lose gold based on the previous values on that space, or based on the like action space itself. So that one looked cool, very attractive, like design. And the other one I've been excited for a long time, ever since the crowdfunding campaign for it, which is Sail. That's a 2-player cooperative game, and kind of like Sky Team, 2-player only, and it's a trick taker. So a bit shades of the Fox of the Forest Duet, which is also a 2-player trick taker cooperative game.
That's cool. I definitely want to try that one.
Yeah, so you're doing like the regular thing of like winning tricks and not, but based on the icons on the cards you play and the combination of them, you actually have like a little ship on like a little board, and there's like things chasing you, and like krakens and dragons and things to dodge. There might not be dragons. I don't know why I said dragons. That's not a very piratey thing.
No, it's not.
So yeah, so I just got to kind of like peek through the stuff, but the production looks great. Little small box game. I don't think it's too expensive. Definitely hoping to cover both of those on the channel eventually. I think they said I was on whatever review list is upcoming for it. So yeah, those were 2 I got to look through a little bit out of the off-duty ninja things. That was my morning, kind of hanging out in the suites.
Jerry, did you have anything different from that morning?
No, I went to the off-duty ninja thing as well, and Mike's already covered the games. My highlight there was just being able to connect with people. I saw, Johnny again, which was nice. But I don't really have anything to add to what Mike said.
Okay. So I was just going to wander around because I'd been demoing, and like this is a shout out to everybody who demos at these conventions, because I'd been showing off Flame and Fang the whole night before and basically playing it all day the day before. I was pretty exhausted. It ended up being a pretty late night. So I just wanted to chill out that morning. So I just walked around. I didn't even get to the dealer hall. I was planning on walking the dealer hall, but I was just walking around the demo area, and I walked by Marvel Champions, and I saw several people, but one group in particular with like the rule books out for Marvel Champions in a learn to play game. And no shade against their demoers, they just had a lot of games and one demoer for the whole area. So like there were several tables trying to learn this at once. So I kind of helped out there, just teaching some Marvel Champions, and then ended up sitting in with one of the groups. They're like, hey, do you want to join us? And we didn't. It's just super fun. I mean, that's the kind of game where I just pulled out my deck that I already had because I didn't want them to have to figure out another deck or whatever. But yeah, the demoer came over and totally thanked me for helping out and like joining in and everything else. And it was just, that game was just fun to play. And so, just reinvigorated my love for it, even though we were playing Rhino scenario, the basic scenario with mostly basic decks. I did bring a deck that was way better than the first scenario deck, but I held back on it quite a bit and just kind of had fun. And like, if we really had a crisis, like I would go all out for a turn, but like I just had fun playing and meeting new people, and so yeah, it was just fun to just be able to relax and do that. So that was my Friday morning, just playing Marvel Champions, reinvigorating my love for it.
Yeah, just to add in, uh, please, if you're at a convention, be nice to your demoer. It is having done it, it is a very difficult job. There's often situations come up that you have not encountered before or thought of before. You might be teaching a game that you only had started playing recently. So try to be a little understanding, take it all in stride, and even if they make mistakes, just go to it for the fun of it. I know it can be tempting to sort of say, "Hey, you're supposed to be demoing. You're supposed to know everything there is to know." But you know, eh, even if you see something like competitive Magic tournaments, they call judges over, and judges have to call other judges to figure out what particular rulings are. So just kind of go with the flow and enjoy what you're doing, and be nice to your demo person.
Yeah. So Jerry, why don't you talk about the next thing we did, which was play Lord of the Rings living card game, or the card game, or yeah, I think it was before they called them living card games. I think it's just Lord of the
No,
Rings, the card game.
they called them living card games for a while. They started that with I think Call of Cthulhu a long time ago. Anyway, so Lord of the Rings living card game is sort of a long in the tooth game. They're re-releasing it in sort of better sets and combined sets now, but I had played it when it originally came out many years ago, and while the gameplay was fine, it didn't really feel too Lord of the Rings to me. But I signed up for this event anyway because all the One Stop Co-op Shop group, like Colin and Terrence and Steve and a bunch of other people were playing in this particular event, which was Hunt for the Dreadnought. I think where everybody's going off up against a big enemy ship, and it has some special rules. So I signed up for it more to play with other people that I knew and enjoyed playing with versus the game itself. And as expected, I had an awful lot of fun. So Colin and Terrence provided me with a deck. It was an Eagle deck, and it was the table or the particular game we were in. It was me, Peter, and Steve from One Stop Co-op Shop, and Steve was sort of uh, helping me get back into the swing of things since I hadn't played it in a few years. And as expected, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun because of the people I was playing with, as well as the game itself. I mean, the game's mechanics are fun, and they didn't get in the way of my enjoyment at all. It still doesn't feel too much like Lord of the Rings, especially sort of a going against a large ship, which isn't something that there's a whole lot of in Lord of the Rings. But I had an awful lot of fun playing with Steve and Peter, and eventually I think we all prevailed, which was
Yep.
fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is Lord of the Rings is more scenario based, but it is definitely the foundation for Marvel Champions. I don't think we've ever done a review of Lord of the Rings, the card game, and I'm not certainly going to do a full review here. But it definitely has some mechanics to me that I am glad they updated in Marvel Champions and they've changed. But the turn structure is a lot more integrated than it is in Marvel Champions. So there's not as much downtime. So I think there's definitely pros and cons. The games definitely go longer to some degree because of their turn structure, but you're also more involved, I feel like, for more of the turns. It's not like you go, I go. Turn structure. It's all right. We're going to quest now. Who wants to put in questing points? How many are you putting in? Oh, you're doing this many. Well, I'm going to back out and I'm going to do less this time. So I do like Lord of the Rings as a change of pace, but the only thing that made me sad now is that Jerry did enjoy his time there, which leads me more into potentially buying back into the game, which is not necessarily a good thing because there's a lot of stuff out there, even just in the re-releases, and it'll definitely add up pretty quickly. So please support our Patreon. And,
Right.
no, just kidding.
Well, no. If you buy it, I'll play it. In apparently vain hope that I'll feel the Lord of the Rings theme come through on that. But I still always
I
end up
think,
going back to War of the Ring as my go-to for that theme.
of course. Yeah, no. And I mean, the theme is what you put into these games, Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings included. It is definitely like the theme is there on every card, but whether you feel it or not is definitely going to be, you know, what you bring to the table, because it's you could totally ignore the theme, you could totally ignore what's on the card except for like numbers and stuff, and you could certainly play it that way, or you could really dive into the theme. I think people who are really into it, like Terrence and Colin and Steve, really do get into the theme of every mission. They're like, oh, in this mission you're doing this and this, and they really describe the world. I think, you know, again, you could go at it either way and make it as thematic as you want. But for me, both Marvel Champions, which I love, and Lord of the Rings, which I like, you know, don't feel very much like, you know, what they're doing. I just like, you know, beating stuff up in cool card play. And if you're in it for that, they certainly both have that as well.
I would
All
say
right.
if you're in the Lord of the Rings theme, look for an opportunity to play with Colin, Terrence, or Steve if you want to enjoy the game.
Not Peter is what he's saying, is really what I heard there.
Pretty much, yeah. And don't let Mike build your deck.
That's for sure.
All right, Mike, what were you doing that Friday afternoon?
So this was a pretty exciting one. I got to play a couple of things. I mean, here's the big one. I got to play the current build of the Elder Scrolls Chip Theory game, which, if you don't know anything about it, it is heavily based on Too Many Bones, which is Chip Theory's kind of biggest success game, of course. This is a solo cooperative kind of adventure battling, tactical battling on a map kind of thing. And yeah, a lot of the like big changes have already been reported, but I got to play through almost an entire session. We like were maybe a couple rounds shy, and then I wanted to see some of 20 Strong and other Chip Theory games, so we didn't quite finish it. But big things. This will make most sense if you're already a Too Many Bones fan. But they just updated some things that I think everyone can agree is probably a little bit better than the way Too Many Bones does it. So Too Many Bones has a problem where as you go along, the enemy forces keep getting larger and larger, but if you lose a battle, you don't get any stronger, so you can kind of like fall behind the curve and just die. And this game fixes that because the enemy forces are based on your own experience level, so only if you get stronger do they get stronger. Now, you know, you could complain that means that you both are getting stronger, you never actually feel stronger, but that's definitely not the case. The leveling is very different here, and it's pretty awesome from what I saw. Like, you can splash into all these skill trees. It does give the characters less identity, but if you like character customization, like I was a rogue with cool archery skills and like some sneaky skills, but I could have just as easily been like a barbarian who not only swings giant axes, but like summons demons and plays with like blood magic. So the character stuff was really cool. It's all, you're moving your chip around a hex-based map, which didn't have much going on. We had a like little dungeon crawl delve at the end that had more stuff and like more terrain effects, but like the basic fights was pretty much just like plain terrain, enemies on this side, you on this side, go, which was enough because your skills are really cool and the stuff the enemies are doing is pretty challenging sometimes, so it didn't like really feel boring or anything. But yeah, the leveling up was great. The adventuring is a little bit like, for anybody who's seen our coverage of Hoplomachus Victorum, the solo-only Chip Theory game, it's a little bit like that, where you're kind of moving around to different like hub spots, and they'll determine whether you could have like non-combat encounters, you could have sometimes combat encounters, and actual combat encounters, and extra delves, and stop in like towns to rest and train and get items and stuff. It was very it was pretty smooth playing even at this early build. Like, there wasn't much to track that was annoying. The player boards work great already. The skill dice were excellent. Unlike Too Many Bones, your cool abilities keep cycling back, so it's not like you just use them once and they're gone. Like, I had this amazing bow skill that would let me do 4 damage to people who were adjacent to me, spread out however I wanted, and then jump away, and then I would pepper them with more arrows, so it was great. Yeah, and then the delve was very challenging. It was like kind of more exploratory based. Like, we would move to a spot and draw a card, and that would determine like who spawned and what the new terrain would look like. So it was kind of an evolving like dungeon crawl feel, which is very new for Chip Theory. They've never done like a dungeon crawl kind of thing before. So yeah, overall, the scary thing for me is I owned like basically everything for Too Many Bones in a giant trove chest, and the scary thing is I could see this making me replace it, which I like Too Many Bones. I don't want to replace it, but it was excellent. Very few complaints, and the game is more than a year out, and already I'm like, dang, I would just buy this almost today, like once they finish the art and graphic design. So that was awesome. And then the last thing I did for the afternoon, so I did see 20 Strong. It's great. They gave me an early copy of it for review, and I'm actually going to have a playthrough up Monday, I think, or Tuesday next week. We're going to have a lot of Gen Con videos up next week. I've been working really hard since I got back on them. But yeah, I'll have a playthrough of 20 Strong. It's pretty great. It's very random. It's a dice game. I wasn't sure how random it would be at first, and now I appreciate that it is very random sometimes. But it's also like, yeah. Sometimes the dice just don't go your way, or the cards. It's more the cards not going your way actually than the dice. The dice are very mitigatable. The cards not always so much. But yes, but it's like a 10 to 15 minute game, so it's a blast so far. I'm really happy with that one. But yeah, we don't talk about this side of things too much, but Peter, well, I don't know if you do this, Peter. I think you do, but we'll just like meet with designers sometimes, friends of ours or not friends, people that we talk to online, and we'll just like talk about their games and like kind of help them with their design, like not in any way that we're gonna like get money for it or like ask for a development fee or like co-designing credit, but like we'll just kind of be sounding boards. I certainly do this a lot.
Well, like Henry and Chris did with us for
Yeah,
Flame
exactly,
and Fang.
exactly. Like designers, it's good to find a group of friends that are also designers and just kind of talk to each other. So this one was a mix of that and coverage for the YouTube channel because all these things kind of blend together a bit. This guy from I think it's Envyborn Games, he's doing a set of 3 like very small micro games, like all of them crowdfunding together, and I'm assuming you can buy them separately or all together. And I got to play 2 of the 3, the 2 that have solo modes, and they're both like very small, like 18 card games where you're trying to score the most points. The first one was Sirens, which was the less interesting tactical one, but it's still a cool game. You're basically trying to build a row of cards, like your song, and you draw 2 cards a turn. You have to give 1 to the enemy and 1 to yourself. So just like that little tactical choice of like, oh man, what's going to help me out a lot, but oh crud, that card's going to help them out a ton, and the rules for what helps the enemy changes, so it stays kind of consistently interesting. But the cool hook for that one is that you're supposed to be like the sirens in Greek mythology, like luring sailors to their death. And they have an app for the game that already worked, even though the game's not like completely done yet, where the actual cards you're putting down have like music notes on them. Again, if you go back and watch my Gen Con video, you can see this. And you scan the cards with an app, and then it plays your song back to you.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so it's just a cool hook, like the game is fine. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but that I'm like, that's really neat. The other one I played is very good.
Now, neither of these are available yet.
No.
Right?
So I did agree. Like, I wasn't sure if I would do a video. So the guy was like, hey, let me show you the games and play them. So like now I'm definitely doing a video for Sirens and Defrag. So they will be coming to crowdfunding soon. I think he said like September, October. But yeah, so the other one was called Defrag. You're trying to defrag a drive. So you're actually like moving these cards around. It's less pretty than Sirens, but it was very, very good tactical, like action point gameplay positioning. Reminded me a bit of one of my recent favorite ones, Rove, which is another like 18 card button shy game. So yeah, Defrag looks awesome. I liked it more than like Sirens. I like the art better. I like the theme better, and I like the little hook of the music. But if I just want pure, interesting solo puzzly goodness, Defrag was definitely the one to go for there. So that's what I played. Elder Scroll. So giant over $100 chip theory game, followed by 2 micro games that are probably going to be like $10 or $15 each.
Nice. Jerry, you and I were supposed to, after our Lord of the Rings game, go do a Thunder Road demo, but honestly, I think we were both exhausted from the morning and from the day before. So we went and got food because it was 3:00 and we hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. So we went over, grabbed food. We were supposed to do, like I said, Thunder Road Vendetta. I think it cost Jerry money because we didn't end up going to this demo. Because Jerry will tell you about his next morning experience, but ended up picking up Thunder Road after we didn't play it. Although I think you probably would have bought it anyway.
Yeah, apparently.
At that point. Yeah. So then we all went to Defenders of the Realm. Is that the next thing we did?
I didn't do Defenders of the Realm.
You were with us, though, right? You were in the room. You didn't play, but you were there. Yes, you were off to the side. I wasn't
paying attention to you.
You clearly weren't. But so we know Daryl Louder, who's with Flat River Group.
Yeah. Okay.
So we went in, and I had seen him a couple times throughout the course of the con, and he's, helping redesign Defenders of the Realm. So we were like, hey, we do co-op games. We'd like to see it. So we went in and got to play a couple rounds of it. And Mike, you're really good at recapping games, so why don't you recap, just the basics of the game and kind of your initial impressions?
Sure.
Yeah, Mike, talk some more.
Sorry, I'll go quick. Yeah, so Defenders of the Realm is a pandemic-based game that Richard Launius designed years and years ago. It's based on pandemic, but it was like a 3-hour monstrosity, like very epic adventure game, but also had some potential problems because it was like all dice rolling to defeat enemies and yeah. So there's a lot similar in here, but solo co-op game. There's 4 generals you have to defeat. These bosses, they are moving towards the center of the city, and so are their minions. If too many people get to the center of the city, then you lose. And the players are moving around fighting the minions. So the minions that you defeat in dice-based combat are the cubes in Pandemic. You're trying to kind of manage the crises and kill them. And you're trying to build up cards of the same color to, instead of curing diseases, kill the generals. That's kind of like where the Pandemic crossover happens, and this new version maintains that, but a lot of other stuff is very different. You have unique cards for each of your characters. The characters have a bunch of unique abilities, and the cards themselves, they will let you move or attack. So basically you're playing cards to move or attack on your turn, but then the cards will have like special powers. Like I had one that was like, okay, so not only do you move, but you also like charge in, and then you also get a free attack, so like very cool abilities happening. And then like the abilities on your character sheets were really neat too. And again, completely unique, each character kind of doing their own thing. So this is one that had the turn structure that I don't like so much anymore, but we had until recently in our own game. You're kind of like free form, just like playing cards whenever you want to. You're moving around, you're fighting minions in dice-based combat. You're trying to roll high, and sometimes you have ways to mitigate, sometimes you don't. You're taking damage. If you take too much, you go back to the town. And you're again building up to these like big general fights where you have to discard a bunch of cards of their color, roll a ton of dice, and try to kill them, and usually like kind of work together on it. So it's kind of an early build, but the components looked ridiculous. Now I have no idea
Yes.
to what extent that will represent the actual game, but like ridiculous miniatures, not just of like the enemies and the characters, but also like just
The minions and stuff too.
well, that's what I said, the minions, but also like terrain on the board, and like the castle had like little castle walls. So I think miniature lovers and just like blinged component lovers will certainly like this game. I had some issues with the gameplay itself, some what I thought were unfun mechanics. Some of them carryovers from the old system, some of them entirely new problems to be created, at least for my taste. But a lot of it was great. I thought the characters were awesome. I thought a lot of like the tactical play around the board was cool. What about you, Peter? How do you feel about it?
I had fun on my turn. I had fun doing what I was doing. I even had fun watching everybody else's turns when they were doing what they were doing, because I liked seeing how their cards were different than mine and how they could do different things than I was able to do. And some characters could move better, and some characters could do other things better and fight better or whatever else. I liked a lot of like how there were different spaces on the board that like you could do different questing actions and things like that on different spaces. All of that was really fun. I thought it was playing a little bit long, and I thought, like you said, like there was some randomness with card draw and some randomness with the boss fights that was still in there. Like if you lost to minions, like you kind of double lost, because not only they're still on the board, but now you're taking damage as well. So there were plenty of ways to mitigate dice, things like that. But there are some things that I would like to see smoothed out a little bit. But the good news is we know Daryl, and we can give him all this feedback before the game releases, and hopefully, take it to heart and make a better game. I know we've played many games in early prototype form where like, yeah, I didn't love this part of it. And, then by the time final release comes out, the game is much, much better. I think they have a good core system there. I really had fun with what we were doing. I think, with a couple tweaks, the game could be super fun.
And I want to say, I'm not even sure they need to tweak anything. I'm not a big fan of the original Defenders of the Realm, and I don't think you are either, right, Peter?
Correct.
So, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff in the game will appeal to old fans of Defenders, but in a quicker playing, prettier, kind of slightly more interesting in many ways, more modern design.
Well, what you're doing on your turn is way more fun than Defenders.
Yeah.
Defenders was like move or attack or do whatever. Now that's all controlled by cards, yes, which have kind of the same actions on them, but a lot of times it's like attack, but if you're fighting undead, do this, or if you got this, do that, or get more dice, or reroll, or whatever else. So like they had special actions if you use the card for what the power on the card was. So it just made everything more interesting. You weren't limited by the cards in your hand, but if you wanted to do the coolest part of the cards, you kind of they pushed you in a certain direction,
Yeah.
which I really appreciated.
So more to be seen, but certainly a lot of stuff to like and some things to maybe not be so sure about so far with that one.
Well,
Yep.
I had a couple comments about that. As an outside observer, I did not play. I just watched them play. Two things I noted. One was that it appeared that your characters were awesome from the get go, right?
Yes,
Versus
definitely.
yeah, versus the original Defenders of the Realm where you kind of had to build up to that. Your guys were uh, doing stuff from the very beginning, which seemed interesting and a little bit faster from the development standpoint. The other thing was sort of a general observation that I thought it was interesting that you have two types of co-op games that are essentially based on the pandemic system, where you have pandemic where everything is determined by the card play, versus Defenders of the Realm, which I thought was a little bit too determined by the dice. And now it seems like both sides, when they're releasing new stuff, sort of go towards the other. So, for example, with Pandemic, can see something like the Clone Wars game or the World of Warcraft game that are based on the pandemic system, but have some dice rolling in there. And then you have this redo of Defenders of the Realm, where it's kind of pulling it back towards the pandemic side of things, where it's not quite as random as a full Launius dice fest kind of game. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they're both pulling back towards the middle of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good observation, and I totally agree.
And then the only other thing I did that night, we were kind of gonna do a meetup, but it didn't quite work out. So I ended up going to a place called Tappers, and I'm just gonna throw this in real quick. I'm not gonna go over details, but if you're ever at Gen Con or ever in Indianapolis and you love old school video games, old school arcade, this place is freaking awesome. So it's free games when you go in, like the pinball you have to pay for, but all other old school video games are free and they're like literally strewn about the place. And it's a bar also, so you can get beer while you're there. They think they even have their own custom beers, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they bring it in from other places, but yeah.
Yeah, so we've done Tappers every year. It's usually an event. We did that Friday night. I think we usually do it Friday night. I will say, because it's kind of become an event that people know about on Friday nights, not necessarily the best night to go there because there was a line outside the bar by the end of the night. But yeah, I mean, you could do it any night. It doesn't need to be Friday, and you're going to have fun if you go with some friends and play video games. So definitely an annual tradition, something I love doing, and just as fun this year.
All right, does that wrap up Friday?
Yep. Mike, that was your first time at Tappers. What did you think?
It was cool. There are a lot of video games that I had not played in forever. Like we were playing. So I've been hanging out with some other content creators some of that night, and my phone died, and I kind of had to go to Tappers, so I would know that I had to ride home. But I was hanging out with Mark Dainty again, Jeremy Howard, friend across many years at this point from Man vs. Meeple, Jenna Beasley, I want to say Beasley.
Board Game Garden.
Yeah, from Board Game Garden. And crud, I forget his last name, but Peter, who's involved with.
You don't have to name drop the whole time. It's good.
Yeah. Wait, one of the people involved with Flamecraft, and yeah, so we all went to Tappers, and yeah, it was fun. We played the Simpsons game. Y'all remember the old like Simpsons, side scrolling beat 'em up.
Yep.
We played Gauntlet. We played. I played a shooting game. I had not played a light gun game in forever, and man, I miss light gun games. Like clearly, I don't necessarily want to get games with guns for my kids anymore. I think the world has changed since I was playing them. But still, like it was just fun to point something at the screen and click and make zombies go dead. So yeah,
I have a light gun cabinet at my house.
Yeah,
you should come over.
Well, I invite me over, Jerry. So yeah, so I thought it was a good time. I mean, in retrospect, we had some people meeting up for board games, and I kind of wish I was there. But what we were doing was still a lot of fun.
Well, I invited them all to come join us at Tappers, to be fair, and they decided that they didn't want to walk the mile to get over there. For me, totally worth it, but I could see why people wouldn't necessarily want to walk a mile away.
Yeah, it's fun to go every year.
Well, and I felt like I needed exercise too. As much as anything, I just wanted to get the walk in. It's like a mile there, a mile back. Like I felt a lot better after sitting around playing games for 3 straight days at that point, or two straight days, I guess. So lastly, we'll go over Saturday. My Saturday morning, real quick. I played Marvel Champions again. I played the new set. It's called Next Evolution that's coming out. It is based on the X Force is what they're called. Um, they did not let you play any of the new heroes, so you had to bring your own decks to that. But you did get to play through the first scenario, and I thought it was really cool. It was a multi-villain scenario where you're fighting against multiple different villains, and I think there were like 8 or 9 of them. But the nice part, unlike normal Marvel Champions, where you defeat an enemy and then you go to their next stage, here when you defeat an enemy, you went to a completely different enemy. So you had to beat like 3 different enemies. It was a nice, quick first scenario, and I thought it was really good for a first scenario. Like I really enjoyed that. So that's Marvel Champions Next Evolution. I played that all morning Saturday morning. How about you guys?
Well, Mike, you want to go?
I mean, I had a lot of meetings. The only thing I actually played in the morning, or sorry, actually the entire morning and afternoon, was very, very exciting one. I talked about this in my video. Horror on the Orient Express. So Chaosium, that is most known for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game that Jerry mentioned already. They are trying to get into the board gaming scene a bit more. So this usually would think of this kind of game coming from our Fantasy Flight. They do like the most of the Lovecraftian games. But this is Chaosium. So Horror on the Orient Express, a solo co-op game. It's based on a famous, I think, adventure from Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, it's a huge campaign
Oh, got it.
that have been sold in multiple editions. It's expensive, but very detailed.
Yeah, so I got to play about half a game of this. It was super early, like all the art was cobbled from other like Call of Cthulhu assets or just like online pictures. The icons were like terrible. But dang, the gameplay was great. So just to like kind of, I'm just going to give you a few flashes of thematic awesomeness. The cool thing is all the thematic stuff I'm talking about was also very engaging tactically. So you've got a vampire walking around the train cars, drinking the blood and murdering the passengers. And you can open the shades of the train car to weaken him. You can also lure him to train cars where the passengers are ready to like fight and aren't easy victims for him. That was awesome. You have monsters running along the side of the train, spawning, and some of them grabbing enemies out of the train or haunting their dreams or doing other stuff. And by the way, the windows you're opening to make sunlight weaken the vampire, those are the exact same windows that if you open them, one of the monsters can grab the people inside. So you are then punching the monsters and making them fall back. And if you punch them hard enough, they fall back behind where the train is, and that's how you kill them. You just knock them off like far back enough from the train track, which if you speed the train up becomes a lot easier to do. And then you are also trying to figure out which of these suspects are cultists, secret cultists, in this bag drawing push your luck mechanic that was a lot of fun. Basically, you're having conversations with them, and not just with them, but also with like the passengers on the train. And
I love how you just stopped to have a conversation with somebody as a vampire is like attacking you.
Well, no. Like, so the thing is,
having people off the train.
That's the game, Goose. That's the game.
Yeah, no, I get it, but it's just like, well, so hey, buddy, tell me about your family.
Well, no, the whole idea is that they don't know what's going on. A lot of it is hidden from them, and like they're kind of like in a daze anyway. So, but that's the whole thing, Peter. What you just said is exactly right. So you are asking about the other passengers and accidentally letting things slip. So if you go too far and you push your luck and draw too many tokens from the bag, then you could drive the passenger that you're talking to insane or terrify them, and then they'd be weaker and easier to kill by the monsters or by the vampire. So no, you're right. Like thematically, like what you just said, exactly what happens. And then there were like the characters each have different awesome abilities. Like I had a bounty hunter who could like form a posse and have other passengers push the monsters off the train for him, but then they would be driven, like get wounded or insane from the experience. You could learn magic where you could eradicate parts of a train, like blow them up. Just be like, well, we're not going to worry about that part of the train anymore. Yeah, it was awesome. Like every choice was thematic, but the gameplay was still pretty smooth. Like I could literally sit down and teach the entire game right now. That's how straightforward the mechanics were, even though it had a lot going on. And
That's cool.
I'm beyond excited for it. Like
I am 110% there for it.
Yeah. I mean,
so what was the name of that one again?
Horror on the Orient Express, coming to crowdfunding, I think early next year, like maybe.
Yeah, it's supposed to be early 2024.
Yeah.
It was, they recently announced it, like, I don't know, a couple weeks before GenCon, and there was a bit of discussion about it, but, as somebody who's really enjoys Call of Cthulhu as well as Horror on the Orient Express, the campaign, I am very interested in this one. Looks really good.
Yeah, I'll figure.
Cool.
Now, the only thing I'll say is one of the designers of this one, who is my friend Adam, who he also does, I think, co-designed Nemesis from Awaken Realms, co-designed Frostpunk, the recent game, co-designed this War of Mine. If you heard all those 3 games and you know anything about them, you know they're all really hard. And it was the funniest thing. I forget if I told you this, Peter and Jerry. I walked with him down to the stadium to talk to some other people that were playing a different version of the game, just to like say hi to the other co-designer of the game. And he looked at their board. They had just finished playing. This other group played an entire game, and they were all dead. And they were still like 7 spaces from the train, like exiting, and they hadn't found all the cultists. Like they were quite a ways from winning, and they weren't even like. And he looked at me, he was like, "Oh man, you all did really well. I think I'll have to make the game a little bit harder."
Oh god.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, "Ah, come on, Adam, you don't need to." So, yes, he is not known for making his games easy. He certainly has his preferences with how things should go. But yeah, I thought it was awesome.
I really like Nemesis, and Frostpunk I thought was well designed, if not quite to my taste.
Yeah, and Frostpunk was also very much like a solo game that you could play co-op.
Yeah.
This is 100% like you have tons of unique, interesting actions on your character, and you really got to like carefully discuss how you're going to divide things up and help each other out and like kind of do things together. So no, I thought it was excellent.
Yep. So next, Jerry ran and got Thunder Road Vendetta first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah, I actually stood in the great group of people that waits for the doors to open at 10 a.m. To get into the vendor hall on Saturday morning, which is something I had said I wasn't going to do, but I had heard that Thunder Road Vendetta, the Maximum Chrome edition, which is the edition that has all the expansions with it, they were going to have an additional 100 copies. They sold out early on Thursday and didn't have any copies on Friday, but brought in an extra 100 copies on Saturday. So I decided to stand in the great throng of people that was waiting to get in on Saturday morning. A decision which, unfortunately, I don't regret. But we all rushed in when they opened the doors at 10 a.m. and I managed to get number 76 in line for the 100 copies of Thunder Road Vendetta Maximum Chrome Edition. So we did a play of that game later, so we'll talk about it then. But after that, as soon as I got the game, I rushed over and we did another True Dungeon. So, Peter, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, no, I just want to quickly say it was just as great as the first one. The people we were with were great again. In fact, I had like laid out my monk character sheet. I had like put all my gear on. And one of the people just came up and they're like, "Which spots don't you have gear for?" And he literally just started putting chips on my board, like from his own personal stash, like filling my character all the way up. Now it was, basic common gear or whatever, but it was just really neat. I went from a character sheet that was less than half full to one that was almost all the way full up. So just people are really nice. People who have done this before. I would still say that's not going to be everybody's experience there, but it was my experience that day, and the puzzles were just as great. Again, I think one of the more fun puzzles was the first room in that next one again. Just a really fun physical, puzzle that required everybody to be fully engaged. I think they just do a really good job, and I don't regret any of the time spent at True Dungeon. This one was a ghost theme one, like a haunted mansion or whatever. So, so very different theme wise, but just as fun, if not more fun, because we got to do it longer and more.
Yeah,
so
we had a third ticket, so we invited Barrett from Meet Me at the Table, also of One Stop Co-op Shop, to join us on this one. He was excited because he had never done True Dungeon before. And I'll just echo what Peter said. The puzzles were, for the most part, really well done. I know it's extremely difficult to get everybody engaged in those puzzles, but they obviously had come up with puzzles and play tested them and ended up with puzzles that were interesting for everybody involved. So I think we had a lot of fun doing that one. And Peter and Barrett died, which is always good.
Yes, we definitely died. So when you die, you get everything that you would normally get, except for one thing that says "I survived" and then the name of the dungeon you survived
Yeah,
or
you don't
whatever.
get a pin, but everything else you
Yeah,
get.
you still get all this loot and all this other stuff and experience and everything else. So like,
Yeah,
it's still it doesn't matter that much.
and to be
It's
clear,
still
they
really
died
good.
in the last room. It wasn't it didn't impact how much they were participating at all.
No, it was literally the last second to last round of the fight. You guys did one round after we died, and honestly, the quote unquote ghost in the room was talking to us the whole time, while you guys were dying and trying to like get us to like squeal on the group. And Barrett did, so he became labeled as the traitor or whatever at the end. It was really funny.
Yeah,
Like
it was good. It was good.
it was very well incorporated. And I will say one of the other monsters in this one, they had a hilarious actor playing this I won't say what it was, but they had a hilarious actor. And like, if you got a puck that hit the picture of the monster like in the face, then they would say, "Oh, you hit me in the eye." Right? Like, it was just hilarious stuff like that all throughout, because at first you didn't see that there was an actor back there doing all this. I was like, where is that noise coming from? But yeah, no, they did a
Yeah,
really good
they
job.
went the extra mile. It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. And then Mike, I don't know if you had anything else before our Kess Games meeting.
No, I'm that's until like
Yeah, I don't think we should talk too much about that. There was not really anything public, but bottom line is Kess Games, again, the one who are doing Mega Man Adventures. We really are very happy with what they're doing, and we may be working with them again in the future. I think that's probably enough for that, right?
that's all I would say.
Yep. And so the next game I played was definitely my game of the convention. Jerry and I went over and had another demo with Restoration Games. This time we went to it, and this was for Unmatched Adventures.
Yeah,
Um,
Tales to Amaze, the co-op solo version of Unmatched. So Unmatched is normally a 1v1 battler on a map where you have a deck of cards and you play different cards, and your heroes all have unique powers, and they can do different things. This is the new co-op version that is a Kickstarter that hasn't yet delivered, but they had production copies there. So I'll let
and,
Pete.
and they weren't selling it, to be clear.
No, they weren't.
It was just a demo, and I had a blast with this. This was absolutely. I liked Unmatched. Okay, I actually thought about buying some Unmatched stuff before the convention, but Jerry owns most of it, so I kind of asked Jerry what he owned and what he didn't own, and I was like, well, I'm thinking about buying a couple of sets that he didn't own, mostly the Marvel stuff. Just because I like that kind of thing. But I was like, I don't know how much I'll play it, because I like the game okay, but I don't think it's great competitive. Now, some people love it, of course, but I think it's fine. I like it okay. But this Unmatched Adventure, I had a super fun time with. This was, similar to Mike's game of the convention, the Cthulhu one. This was my game of the convention. I really enjoyed Unmatched Adventures. It was just the enemy flipping a card whenever you attack them, or whenever they attacked you, off the top of their deck that told you what their attack power or defense power was or whatever. But just the interesting combos of things that they do and how they were trying to win the adventure or whatever. I just had a lot of fun with it. In fact, I had so much fun with it, I did end up buying those Marvel sets there afterward. So I did end up picking up some Unmatched, with the excitement of knowing that I can take those characters from the competitive game and play them in this Unmatched Adventure. And they also said this was not, the plan was this not to be their only set of Unmatched Adventures. They're definitely planning on going down the road with this, with more stuff as well. And we only played one of the two bosses and just had a blast doing that.
Yeah, we played against Mothman, and there's a each boss comes with a number of minions equal to the number of players. Of which there's 6 that come in the box, and we played
Yep.
a 4-player, and so we played against 4 of them. And so for the most part, I generally prefer competitive games to cooperative games. I know that's sacrilege on the One Stop Co-op Shop, but uh, that's probably why I'm not on the show more often. But uh, this is the cooperative version, and it was absolutely great. Each like as I've come to expect, each one of the heroes has their own unique way of going about things, and they're all very different, and they get to play their own hand, and it really they get to do their own thing without people directing them because they know how their deck works or how their hero works. But that also extends to the minions and the boss that we fight. So each of the 4 minions we have, well, I can really only speak to three of the 4 minions because we concentrated on killing one of the minions before they really had a chance to do much of anything.
Yep.
But each of the minions was doing its own thing. Like one of the minions was uh, making us discard cards from our deck, which really
Yeah,
hurt you.
one was
Another,
dropping acid pools
yeah,
on the
one of them
board. One was dropping
was
webs on
really,
the board.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
us was preventing us from moving. One of us was really hurting us. Like I almost died a couple times, but it was great. I had an awful lot of fun for a cooperative game. We were all participating. We were all discussing. Nobody was directing anybody else. We were working together to accomplish the mission, and we did win, but it was really, really good.
Yeah, and then I just played 2 more games that night. I'm gonna go over these quickly, and then Mike can finish off because we're almost at 2 hours, so we're gonna cut it off here pretty quickly. But Jerry and I played Thunder Road Vendetta after that, and with Henry, yeah, it was just the 3 of us,
Yeah, it was just 3 of us.
and that game was really fun. I mean, if you like chaotic fun, that's what it was. Don't go in expecting some heavy strategy game,
Yeah,
not
no.
by any stretch of the imagination. But the
Yeah,
game seemed to last the right amount of time for what it was. I really enjoyed the whole time we were playing that one. So
yeah,
that one was,
it was
yeah.
chaotic, but it didn't overstay its welcome. It was an awful lot of fun. We played the base game with the Chop Shop expansion, which adds unique crew chiefs, which gives you a unique power and some other stuff, and then some upgrades to your individual vehicles. It was a lot of fun. I highly recommend Thunder Road Vendetta.
And with the Chop Shop expansion now, which is the hardest one to get, but I really
Of
did
course.
appreciate the individual powers that each of our different cars got. I thought that added a lot to the game. I mean, it would be fine without it, but I think it took it to 11 with those powers.
So what else did we play? I think we played
And then the last thing we
Battle
played
for
was
Great
Battle for
Greyport.
Greyport.
Yeah.
Yep, and I should have known not to play this with Henry, but it was again Jerry, Henry, and I. And he had told us days earlier he didn't like when you didn't know when to play on your turn and what to do. And Battle for Greyport is literally you could play your cards down at one moment and you do whatever that special power does, and then later on you can attack with them or whatever else. I love the game a lot, but definitely not Henry's kind of game. Because of all that chaos and when you could play your turns and you're playing on other people's turns and there's no structure to the turns at all, which is something I never thought about before because I always just enjoyed playing it and had played with people who had played before or who didn't mind that kind of thing. But definitely Henry had a issue with the random ability to just jump in whenever you wanted to. He likes more structure
Well,
to his turns.
there
And to
is
be fair,
Go ahead.
no, to be fair, I felt it too this time. When you're playing with somebody who doesn't like that, I also feel like it impacts everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I would
So
say that Greyport has never felt like that kind of game to me. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, first of all, it is one player's turn. They're dealing with their monsters. I think it has a clear structure. I would not apply some of the complaints I said about other games to Greyport personally.
well, no, but anybody can lay down their creature. I'm like, well, hold on. If you play yours first, then you can help me draw cards. If I get a weapon for this guy, then it'll do really. You know what I mean? There's definitely a lot of that type discussion. And if you don't necessarily like that free form, I do think. I mean, you weren't part of the game, but that was definitely part of it because he's like, when can I do something? At several points throughout
Sure,
the
sure,
game,
sure.
and
Well,
we were all tired. It was the end of the convention, so to be fair, I didn't do the best job explaining everything, and we were just kind of like, I don't know. I was a little bit realizing he wasn't enjoying himself, so I was trying to rush through it a little bit more, which probably led to more chaos and more whatever. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of that as well.
Well, I wouldn't say they don't have a structure. Like I think there's a clear structure to Greyport, but I think and to be clear, Greyport is a co-op game that I pretty much enjoy, but um it does have a clear structure, but the structure is not intuitive, I
Sure,
think.
sure, sure.
And I think it's something you have to get used to. And I think Henry had a little bit of trouble understanding the structure of the game. But the main problem I think we ran into there is the card row where you can purchase new cards because Greyport is a bit of a deck builder. They the cards that came up in the card row did not mesh with what we needed. Two of the players required a certain type of card, and those type of cards were not appearing. Which is something that you can see in some other games. I think Hogwarts Battle is a good example of that. And I don't think we've experienced that too much in Greyport because it seems to be pretty rare, but we managed to encounter it. And if you don't get the cards you need, I think we blew through the first two parts, and then we got to the final boss, and the final boss just crushed us. It wasn't even a entertaining in going against them. But
yeah, we lost like in the first round. It was the second round officially, but
bad.
It was basically we lost in the first round.
Yeah, so I'll disagree with Peter a little bit that I think it has a clear structure on how the turns go, but that structure is not something that you see in a whole lot of other games.
For sure.
So if you aren't used to it, it might be difficult to sort of figure that out and understand what's going on. And I don't think Peter and I did a very good job of explaining it.
Well, and it was the end of the last day of the con too, so I think everybody was exhausted.
Yeah,
We've been playing
by
games
Peter and I not
the
explaining
entire
it,
time.
by Peter and I not explaining it very well, I mean really Peter.
Yeah, no, it was me. It was definitely me.
Just to be clear.
I totally agree. All right, Mike, what did you end up playing that last night?
Yeah, so we did get together. Colin and some people from the Discord, Nick and Alex, and a few. I don't remember all the names, but yeah, so a bunch of like people from Discord and from the channel. I never played a game with Colin before in person. We played Letter Jam, which is one of my favorite like party kind of casual games. That's a cooperative deduction like spelling game. And that was a blast as always. I totally got my word wrong, but we still won because I used the wild to save me. But everyone else did much better than I did. I had not played the game in a while. And oh, that's right. When I was at the Check Game Edition, I had a meeting with them. They said there's a Letter Jam online now that you can play, which I think would be great. Maybe I'll play that after we're done recording the podcast. And then the other one we played was one I've been enjoying a lot recently, Deep Rock Galactic. This was the first. If you don't know, it's based on a video game. It's Steve has done some like streaming content on it. It's cooperative, 2 to 4 characters. You can solo control multiple characters, but you're like dwarves, like trying to mine. It's kind of like you're trying to complete missions while the enemies are annoying you. You don't have to kill the enemies, and the weapons, like each of the dwarves has different like classes and special abilities. I never played a 4-player before. And after this game, I probably would not choose to play it 4-player again. The game can already be pretty random, and sometimes like bad things can happen. And man, that's exacerbated to kind of a ridiculous degree when you have 4 players, because you can, if the cards come out the right way, like an enemy can get next to you, and then for the next 3 turns, because enemies can theoretically, depending on the card draw, activate after every turn. You can just get hit by that enemy over and over again and then die. So, yeah, like it's got more issues that I had not noticed before in the 2 to 3 player games that I've been doing. But it's still a fun game. Is it going to stay in my collection? Not 100% sure. It is a bit more random than I'm leaning right now. So it totally probably depends on how much my kids like it. But I still think it's a fun design. Definitely like goofy, silly gameplay. Does that pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean, I had fun with it. I not even goofy, silly all the time. I mean, I think there's good tactical.
Oh no, there is. Yeah, I'm not trying to present it as like a.
It's just more random at higher player count.
Yes,
because like a lot of games, there's just more downtime between your turns, so a lot of more bad stuff can happen to you at higher player counts. Whereas at lower player counts, it's pretty much, you're going, then some enemies are going, and maybe you have 1 or 2 enemies activate once or twice. But the other negative part of it is, in 4 players, you have 4 times the number of enemies or whatever, and they will only be closest to 1 player sometime. Yeah. So literally 4 people worth of enemies will be attacking the same dwarf. So I think it's more of a higher player count problem than a game problem. I think the game is a blast at lower player counts. Yes, and very tactical at the same time.
I have not played it. I have nothing to say.
That's how we like you, Jerry, with nothing to say.
Wow.
Ouch.
To be clear, by the way, Jerry and I were at the same like One Stop Co-op Shop meetup that night, but everyone chose not to play with us when we were playing Thunder Road.
That way.
Oh no, that is definitely what happened. Like we had like a game set up. We were all going to play Thunder Road. Like we had 4 people, and then Mike shows up and like, we're all going to be playing this game while you guys play Thunder Road. I was like,
Well,
all right.
it sounds like they missed
Like,
out, Peter, because we had a blast with Thunder Road, and
yes,
they did not with Deep Rock.
No.
Yeah.
To be clear, we played Letter Jam while y'all played Thunder Road, and we had a
No,
great
we had
time.
more fun. We had more fun.
We had an awesome time.
We had more fun.
All right. Well, so any final thoughts in the last minute here before we get cut off? I mean, I had fun. Gen Con is not my favorite convention. There's just it's a crush of people for me. And you have to pay for a lot of stuff. So
I like it. It's great to see people I wouldn't normally see from all over the world, and you get to play a whole lot of games that you wouldn't normally play. You're not just playing games that you already have. I did spend a lot less time at the vendor hall than I normally do at Gen Con, because I think, Peter, this is like our 4th or 5th time at Gen Con.
yeah.
I only got 3 games.
Jerry, you have 5 seconds.
Done.
Mike's got to give his final thoughts.
Okay, go Mike.
Well, yeah, I just want to say I don't know if I'll go back. I didn't see much here that made it different than PAX, except that it was larger, and I kind of like that PAX is smaller, and PAX is also like 2 to 3 hours away, and Gen Con is 9 hours away. But I had a good time. Definitely glad I went.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.